That is not in the Quran today. And as he said, it was part of a surah which we used to be recited, but was now forgotten.
After abrogation. So there is a concept of abrogation.
There's several names that he gives. Two of the names I'm going to say is Ubay ibn Ka'b,
Ibn
and
Masud.
another one of the names, another one of the names is Ibn Masud.
Yeah, writing skills, recitation skills, and memorization skills. All three are different, right?
Well, no, because they're linked. So I can write something, then I
They're
recite
linked.
it, then
they're linked. They're linked, but all three skills are different.
And your point is 4, 6, 7, 9.
Hmm.
Number one, why did Abu Bakr order the collection of the Quran? It says here that it was in response to Quran reciters being killed and portions of the Quran being lost.
Yep.
He didn't want it to be lost, so he ordered this.
In terms of memorization of the Quran, there were more memorizers of the Quran, or were there more mushafs of the Quran? What do you think at that time?
So there was probably more memorizers, but those memorizers differed.
Okay, so preservation of the Quran, any opening remarks? Yeah, Quran is preserved.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask you what you mean by that.
Yeah,
I'd just like to ask you, when you say that the Quran is perfectly preserved, I'd just like you to say, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it's self-explanatory. I mean, Quran is preserved means that, the recitation and the understanding at the time of Prophet Muhammad and the companions at that time, and the recitation and the understanding at this time, if it matches, it means it's preserved, right?
Okay, so are you saying that, the Quran that Muhammad recited, the words that he was recited, everything there, and what is today, it's a match. Is that basically what you're saying? All right.
Generally speaking, yes. Generally speaking, yes.
What do you mean by generally?
Go on. I mean, make the argument. Generally speaking, yes.
Okay. So are you to clarify before I get into what I'm going to say, are you saying that there's not been a change to any verses? There's not been a change to any surahs?
Yes.
Okay. Are you fine if I share my screen?
Yes. Okay.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, now share it.
Okay, I'm just gonna quickly.
Just make the gist of the argument. You can share these things because then it will get into nitty-gritties. But okay.
Okay, I just want to get.
Show one thing.
Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, I'll show one thing at a time. So I'm just quickly getting out the hadith, and then I'm going to share my screen. All right, so I'm about to share my screen, and then I'll read it for us.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Sahih Muslim 2286. I'm going to read it out loud. Just please let me finish, and then you can comment. Abu Harb bi Abu al-Aswad reported on the authority of his father that Abu Musa al-Ashari sent for the reciters of Basra. They came to him, and they were 300 in number. They recited the Quran, and he said, "You are the best among the inhabitants of Basra, for you are the reciters among them. So continue to recite it, but bear in mind that your reciting for a long time may not harden your hearts, as were hard in the hearts of those before you. We used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity to Surah Barat. I have, however, forgotten it, with the exception of this which I remember out of it. If there were 2 valleys full of riches for the son of Adam, he would long for a 3rd valley, and nothing would fill the stomach of the son of Adam but dust. And we used to recite a surah which resembled one of the surahs of Musabihat, and I have forgotten it, but remember this much out of it. O people who believe, why do you say that which you do not practice? And that is recorded in your necks as a witness against you, and you would be asked about it on the day of resurrection. So I want to go back to the first surah that they forgot. He says that he remembers one verse out of it. If there were 2 valleys full of riches for the son of Adam, but dust. That is not in the Quran today. And as he said, it was part of a surah which we used to be recited, but was now forgotten. Surah that resembles in length to Surah Barat, which is Surah 9, which is about 179 verses. So it's saying that this entire surah, with this portion about Adam, has been lost. We don't even see it in the modern Quran. So that would show that there is an example that the Quran is not perfectly preserved. There's been at least this lost surah. There's also other sources, but this is the first one I wanted to show you.
So do you know
Something to
that?
think about.
Yeah. Do you know that firstly, if this was lost, firstly it is preserved in the hadith literature, right? Because you are reciting it, that Furqan, with the exception of
So it's not preserved fully in the hadith literature, because as you can see, he's saying that he only remembers one surah, one verse out of the whole surah, which resembles Surah Barat in length, Surah Barat, so about 179 verses. So around about 179 verses are lost, of which only one is remembered and recited in the not recited, but here in the hadith literature. But that entire chapter itself has been lost.
Yeah, I've come across these hadiths before, and I evaluated all these things, once upon a time, and the way, as far as I remember, I recall that these parts were abrogated, and then they were removed from the Quran. Abrogation. So there is a concept of abrogation, and it's during that time, right? During that time of the companions, the abrogation took place, and these parts were removed.
I have a question for you about abrogation, and then I'll speak a bit about it. Abrogation, was that just for commands?
Abrogation, no, it were for commands as well, but it could be for other things as well.
No, but so according to your literature, is it just for commands, or is it not?
There were 2 or 3 types of abrogations as far as I remember. One were for commands as well, right? So in order to improve the reasoning behind God's commands, so another verse would come and abrogate the previous verse. Some types of abrogations were such that both verses were in the Quran. Such types of abrogations were that certain verses were left out of the Quran. So both type of abrogations existed at that time, right?
Okay. Can you see my screen at the moment? It's changed. Now it's on Surah 16. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it. Whenever we replace a verse with another verse, and Allah knows well what He reveals, they say you are but a forger. The fact rather is that most of them are ignorant. Or
just like
okay,
it's
so
right now,
I'll
right?
read another one, and when we substitute the verse,
yeah, just like
okay. So here's the thing, and here's what this verse shows. Here's some problem. So here's some problems I have with abrogation, and here is why abrogation would not even apply to what I just showed you. First of all, can you hear me?
Yeah, internet is, I think, cutting a bit. Yeah, go on.
Okay, so we see that Muhammad had already been called a fabricator. It's right here in the verse. They say you are but a forger. So apparently abrogation, Muhammad, had been happening before it had even been mentioned in the Quran, which makes it clearly seem that Muhammad was trying to justify his contradictions, because he was already been called a forger even before he revealed about abrogation. That's one issue that I have with it.
Yeah,
but when we get to
that is the Orientalist.
Okay, and when we get to Sahih Muslim,
that's an Orientalist view, right?
When we get to Sahih Muslim,
that's an Orientalist view. The thing that is contradiction for you is abrogation for us, right? We think that those verses.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that
it's interpretation,
Muhammad was already called a forger.
Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is that Muhammad was already called a forger, and only then did he reveal, oh no, it's just this thing called abrogation.
Yeah, but
we're substituting a verse.
Yeah,
but that implies that he's just making this up in order to justify the fact that that called him a forger already.
People called him.
And another thing is, I want you to notice one of the conditions about abrogation. When we substitute a verse, abrogation means that there is a replacement. There's a replacement in place. In place. When we go back to Sahih Muslim 2286, which we've already chatted about, we can see. So first of all, remember, this says that abrogation always comes with a replacement. We don't see a replacement for the lost whole entire surah within the Quran. And Surah 16:101 also says verse, not whole chapters. So we see that these are 2 ways in which abrogation cannot apply because it was a whole chapter and because we don't see a replacement of that in the Quran. So this is further showing that it's not abrogation, but it's actually genuinely a lost surah. It's also one of many examples of lost verses, but we'll get to that. I just wanted to point out that that these points, that it can't be abrogation for these reasons.
Yeah.
How do I stop sharing my
Yeah.
screen? Because I want to like also adjust.
I think you can just stop sharing.
Oh yeah, I can see. Okay, awesome. So yeah, that is
Yeah, the thing is, Allah is saying that He can substitute with something better, right? How do you know that the verse that was abrogated, a substituted
okay.
verse, a
Sorry,
substitute,
it cut off a
because
bit.
that hadith,
You said, how do you
yeah,
know?
yeah, that Surah Bara. No, the screen has stopped sharing, right? The screen has stopped sharing. Yeah, that entire chapter was about the greed of man. That if Adam, if the son of Adam, if you give him a mountain of gold, he will desire from. I mean, there are multiple verses in the Quran about greed and hindering Muslims from greed. So how do you know a substituted verse didn't came or so? So these all
Okay,
things.
so but the thing is also you're just assuming that the entire chapter was about greed based on this one verse. But the fact of the matter is you don't even know what the rest of the verses within the chapter
How do
are
you know?
saying.
Yeah, but how do
Hold
you
on.
know? Yeah.
Oh, just let me finish, please. Because the entire chapter has been lost. Additional
Yeah.
to the fact of that is that abrogation speaks about verses. Sorry, it says when we substitute a verse, not a whole chapter. This is speaking about a whole chapter where we don't have any. Wait, I mean, do you see any record of how this has been like translated into some sort of new chapter? That's just
Yeah.
an assumption you're making. Whereas within the Hadith, we're seeing this is a lost chapter. Sahih Muslim 2286. It's also in 1500.
I mean,
Do
now
you know
it's
the
getting
compilation for
into nitty gritties. I mean, chapters are made of verses. I mean, let's just say that chapter had some sort of like 5 or 6 verses. How do you know that only 1 or 2 verses weren't substituted and the other verses were
Well, it says
amalgamated
that
with
it
the other
resembled.
chapters? I mean, this is nitty gritty element, and again, yeah.
It says that it resembled in length and severity Surah Barat, which is 109 verses. That's a lot of verses to be lost. Also, do you know the compilation history of the Quran, just how it came about? Do you know the actual
Yeah.
history of that according to the Hadith?
109 verses.
You
Where
can
does it say
yes or no.
109
You
verses?
do. So, like Zayd ibn Thabit and stuff like that.
No, 109 verses. Where
It
did you
said
come
that
up with this figure? 109 verses?
you might be. So it said it resembled Surah.
It doesn't say 109 verses.
No. Sorry, I said 179. 179 because it says that it resembles in length Surah verses. So can you
where does it say 117 verses were lost? It doesn't say that. 117 verses. I mean, I didn't see it. The internet connection.
179. That's Surah Barat. 179 verses. Surah Barat.
107. Share the screen again. I want to confirm it.
It said it resembled Surah Barat. But so I would like to also share within the compilation of the Quran, we see that recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari 4679. I'll repeat, it's Bukhari 4679. I'd also like to share that. I'm going to get my share screen out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to press share, and then I'm just going to click on it, and then I'll read it, and then we can talk about it. Okay. So I'm just going to read it. Narrated Zayd ibn Thabit al-Ansari, who used to write the divine revelation. Abu Bakr sent for me after the heavy casualties among the warriors of the Battle of Yamama, where a great number of Qira were killed. Umar was present with Abu Bakr, who said, Umar has come to me and said, the people have suffered heavy casualties on the day of the Battle of Yamama, and I am afraid that there will be more casualties among the Qira, those who know the Quran by heart, at other battlefields, whereby a large part of the Quran may be lost unless you collect it. And I am of the opinion that you should collect the Quran. Abu Bakr added, I said to Umar, how can I do something which Allah's apostle has not done? Umar said to me, by Allah, it is a really good thing. So Umar kept on pressing, trying to persuade me to accept his proposal, till Allah opened my bosom for it, and I had the same opinion as Umar. Zayd ibn Thabit added, Umar was sitting with him, Abu Bakr, and was not speaking to me. You are a wise young man, and we do not suspect you. And you used to write the divine inspiration for Allah's messenger. Therefore, look for the Quran and collect it in one manuscript. By Allah, if he had ordered me to shift one of the mountains, it would not have been harder for me than what he had ordered me concerning the collection of the Quran. I said to both of them, how dare you do a thing which the Prophet has not done? Abu Bakr said, by Allah, it is a really good thing. So I kept on arguing with him about it till Allah opened my bosom for that which he had opened the bosoms of Abu Bakr and Umar. So I started locating Quranic material and collecting it from parchments, scapula, leaf stalks of date palms, and from the memories of men who knew it by heart.
Yep.
I found with Khuzaima 2 verses of Surat At-Tawbah, which I had not found with anyone else. And they were, verily, there has come to you an apostle from amongst yourselves. It grieves him that you should receive any injury or difficulty. He is ardently anxious over you. The manuscript on which the Quran was collected remained with Abu Bakr till Allah took him unto him, and then with Umar till Allah took him unto him, and finally it remained with Hafsa, Umar's daughter. So there's a couple of things I would like to point out with regards to this hadith, which is Sahih Bukhari 9. Number one, why did Abu Bakr order the collection of the Quran? It says here that it was in response to Quran reciters being killed and portions of the Quran being lost.
Yep.
He didn't want it to be lost, so he ordered this. He wanted more of the Quran, parts of which had already been lost, to be further lost.
No. No.
What do you mean no?
Yeah, go
that's
on.
what it says.
No, it doesn't say
So
that.
that's what it says. That's the first thing.
He feared.
And I can quote it. Sorry?
He feared.
Yeah, he feared. He
Yeah.
didn't want more of the Quran to be lost. It was
No.
already being lost, and he didn't want more to be lost. And the second thing I want you to notice is that the person who collected the Quran was Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit is a very significant figure because of something that Muhammad said.
Yep.
So I want to put forth another hadith, which isn't about the Quran preservation, but it's going to illustrate what Muhammad said about where you should get the Quran recitation from.
Yeah, he was one of the scribes appointed by Prophet Muhammad, actually. You know, one of the main scribe, chief member of the scribe, Zayd bin Sabit and Ubay bin Ka'b. Yeah.
So, sorry, this is the wrong one. My bad. I accidentally quoted. Bukhari 4009. Sorry, I thought it was 5005. Bukhari 4009. All right. So this is Muhammad speaking.
These are very, very, these points have already been, refuted, and all of these, I mean, they can be very simply refuted. Very simply refuted. All of these can be.
You can claim that, but it doesn't change the thing. Unfortunately, okay, it looks like I've unfortunately got the wrong reference to the hadith. But basically, you might be aware of this hadith. It's where Muhammad lists learn the Quran from 4. There's several names that he gives. 2 of the names I'm going to say is Ubay ibn Ka'b,
Ibn Masud,
and another one of the names. Yeah, one of the names is Ibn Masud. I unfortunately put the wrong one in my notes, but if you want, you can find that. But basically, I'm sure you agree with me.
Both of their compilation were very close to the Quran, but they didn't 100% match the compilation that we have today, right? This is your argument.
No, I wasn't even getting to that. That was a later one that I could have made, but that's also an argument. But anyway, I just wanted to note it's Ibn Masud and Ubay ibn Ka'b. Those were 2 of the 4 people that Muhammad said you should learn the Quran from. But let's actually listen to what Ibn Masud said about Zayd ibn Thabit, the person who collected the Quran that we had today.
No, don't get into that.
I am going to get into that because it's actually very relevant, because he actually said something about Zayd ibn Thabit that you should probably take note of. This is in Jami' at-Tirmidhi 3104. I'm going to go and read. It's a very long hadith, but I'll get to the part that's relevant. Okay, about Zayd ibn Thabit speaking. So where is it? Okay.
I mean, difference of opinions. Okay. The companions.
Just hold on.
But Zayd ibn Sabit was like the main person, the most main person, the chief.
Okay, so Azuri said Abdullah ibn Utbah informed me that I'll actually point to it. Abdullah ibn Masud disliked Zayd ibn Thabit copying the Musahif, and he said, "O you Muslim people, I am removed from recording the transcription of the Musahif, and it is overseen by a man. By Allah, when I accepted Islam, he was but in the loins of a disbelieving man," meaning Zayd ibn Thabit. And it was regarding this that Abdullah ibn Masud said, O people of Iraq, keep the Muslims that are with you and conceal them. For indeed Allah, yeah, I don't think the rest is relevant, but basically,
I
this
don't
is
think this was
showing.
relevant anyways. I mean, difference of opinions among the companions, we do believe it, but you know, we say that Zayd ibn Sabit and Ubay ibn Ka'b, you know, these were the main chiefs that Prophet Muhammad himself appointed, right?
And the
Afterwards,
distribution to this Quran.
difference of opinions among the companions, it always happens, right?
Well, then I just want to say that's different from the modern Muslim narrative that we hear, because we hear nowadays, everybody knew the Quran perfectly, everybody transmitted it perfectly, there was all agreements, but we're already seeing that one of Muhammad's top reciters, which he listed, agrees with the person who compiled today's Quran. He's not the only one. Ubay ibn Ka'b. There's a very significant hadith that I want to read about Ubay ibn Ka'b, and it's actually 5005. But before I get into that, actually,
I mean, generally, Muslims say that, you know, everybody knew the Quran, everybody recited the Quran. Yeah, that's the general.
We see that's not the case.
Yeah. So,
we see that's not the
case. But was it possible that one of the companions may have forgotten a certain verse, or one of the companions may have forgotten a certain word? I mean, this is possible. This happens even to this day. It doesn't mean that the Quran, it doesn't mean that the oral tradition is not reliable, because, you know, if there are 4 or 5 Hufaz and one may, you know, forget a verse, it doesn't mean that the other forgot the verse. So oral tradition,
right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, with regards to you saying, you know, but you know, it doesn't mean that everybody else forget the verse. Even in the hadith we read of Bukhari 4679, Zayd ibn Thabit said that there was even a verse here from Surah At-Taba, where 2 verses actually, which he didn't find with anybody else except one person.
Yeah.
So we can see that even that was an example of where everybody else forgot, and you only found it with one person. Which further, just let me finish, please. Yeah. Which further poses the question: what about the other verses that were forgotten?
Yeah,
but I was going to speak about Ubay ibn Ka'b.
Actually, there's an interpretation of that. There's an interpretation of that. I think it's probably Ibn Masud who had, you know, these 2 extra verses, right, in his Musaf.
Well, it says over here that it was, I found with Kuzaima 2 verses of Surah At-Taba. So it's speaking about another person. But,
yeah, another person.
But getting back to him, I just wanted to get back to. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Ubay ibn Ka'b, another one of Muhammad's top reciters.
The more you speak, the better it is for me.
So, narrated Ibn Abbas. Remember, we speak about Muhammad's top reciters. Umar said, Ubay was the best of us in the recitation of the Quran, yet we leave some of what he recites.
Yeah.
Ubay says, I've taken it from the mouth of Allah's Messenger. Yeah. I will not leave it for anything, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're speaking about one of Muhammad's top reciters.
Yeah.
And Umar's saying, okay, I know he recites this, but we're not going to recite it. And he even says that I've heard it from Muhammad and I'm not going to leave it. Ubay is adamant. This is a part of the Quran. Yet Umar is saying, no, we're not going to recite it.
Very simple.
Even in the earliest
very simple explanation. Yeah, very simple explanation. You know, writing skills, recitation skills, and memorization skills. All 3 are different skills, right? Do you agree? Writing skills.
You say writing, recitation, and memory. They can be linked, though.
Yeah,
you remember something, then you write it, then you recite it.
Writing skills, recitation skills, and memorization skills. All 3 are different, right?
Well, no, because they're linked. So I can write something, then I recite it, then
they're linked. They are linked, but all 3 skills are different.
And your point is?
Point is, you know, for the compilation and, you know, making the Quran authentic, the oral tradition suggested that it is not just, you know, check 1%, right? It is like they brought up all the Musafs together when the written compilation took place, right? But in oral tradition, it is different. In oral tradition, you don't even require a Musaf, right? We believe that. In oral tradition, if all the Qurans are burned, just imagine for a second, hypothetically, if all the Quran is burnt, and you know, even on the online content, all the Quran is not available. I mean, we can reproduce it in 1 month because of the oral tradition. So when compilation was taking place, he was saying that just don't rely on one person. I mean, have you know, testimonies of all people, like Zayd ibn Sabit, like Ubay ibn Ka'b, so all of the testimonies came in when the compilation of the Uthmani Musaf took place. Yeah, right? Carry on. Are you there? Yeah, I do.
Hey, Brew, can you hear me?
No, it didn't even record, right? Because my internet, was shady. I don't know why this happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we back? Are we online?
Yeah, we are back.
Are you gonna record?
Yeah, it's on record now.
Okay, thank you very much. So like we were speaking about Ubay ibn Ka'b, and we can see that not only is there disagreements, but we see even that there's people who are reciting things that other people completely forgot. We can see it over here with I found with Kuzima 2 verses of Surah At-Tawbah, which I had not found with anybody else. That's one example.
There were
And we
many
can see
Hufaz.
within this particular,
Many Hufaz.
sorry?
There were many Hufaz, yeah.
It says right here that he found it. It says right here that he found it and he had not found it with anybody else. I'm going over it with my mouse. He had not found it with anybody else. And within this, this is the same hadith that we started, I believe it was the second one of the Muslim 2286 that we were speaking about. And we can see about the actual process of Quran collection. And we can see that it was a difficult and an imperfect process. We're told today that everyone knew the Quran by heart and agreed. But here we see that Zayd described it as a task that was very hard. And I'll quote him. He said, by Allah, if he had ordered me to shift one of the mountains, it would not have been harder for me than what he had ordered me concerning the collection of the Quran.
Written
And
collection.
also that,
If there is a difference between written collection and oral collection, right?
well, what we have today is the written Quran, and he's speaking about that. And we
He's
can also
speaking
see
about
that
that,
with,
yeah.
yes, but we can also see within him trying to get it orally from people, there was a time, at least one time, and there's further examples, but this time where he found one verse that he didn't find with anybody else. He also got
Yeah, there is
from,
explanation. There, yeah. Just hear out the explanation. There is an explanation for that as well. Many people used to write, right? Although Prophet Muhammad appointed some of the chief scribes like Zayd ibn Sabit, Ubay ibn Ka'b, but there were many people who used to write. Collection was, many people used to write the manuscript. So basically, whenever people used to write it, some people also somehow mixed the hadith with the Quran sometimes, because there is also Hadith Qudsi. Do you know about the Hadith Qudsi? What is the Hadith Qudsi? So there is like a hadith. There is a Hadith Qudsi is something that is revealed directly to Prophet Muhammad, but it is not part of Quran. So they used to write notes with the Quran, and they used to write a hadith interpretations as well, probably hadith with the Quran as well. So those things got mixed up with certain companions, and they probably mentioned those two verses that you are mentioning. So there are explanations for that as well, right?
well, the verse that I'm mentioning over here is in the modern day Quran, because it gives the reference. It's Surah 9 verse 128. Surah 9 verse 128 was a part of the Quran that was only remembered by one of the persons who Zayd ibn Thabit can find. He also describes how he got it from scapula, leaf stalks, all of these other places, and based on that regard, we don't have the evidence for these particular parchment, scapular, leaf stalks of date palms.
Okay. Again, these are very simple arguments made against this. Let's just say or in terms of memorization of the Quran. In terms of memorization of the Quran, there were more memorizers of the Quran, or were there more mushafs of the Quran? What do you think at that time?
So there was probably more memorizers, but those memorizers differed, as we can see here by this person.
Okay. If there are
giving two verses that nobody else gave.
Yeah. If there are more memorizers, let's just give a random number. Let's say there were like 300 or 400 memorizers.
I just want to say you're getting very dicey when you're going into hypotheticals.
No, this is the reality. This is the reality. Let's suggest there were like more memorizers. Let's say 300 or 400 memorizers, right? This is a general, just give a general number. And the Musaf's collection were like 5 or 6 or 7. Musaf's collection were made by a limited amount of people. So what is a better mode of authentication of the Quran? If you get all the memorizers to authenticate it, is that better, or just check only 5 or 6 mushafs? You tell me.
So I'd just like to say, over here what we see, let's use your example of 400 memorizers.
Yeah.
So 300.
By the way, there is also a list available online as well.
Just hold on, please.
Yeah.
So using your example of 400 memorizers, 399 of them forgot this Surah 9 verse 128 And hold
I
on, let
mean,
me
you
finish,
just
please.
said this is
And
the,
Zayd
you
and
just
Zayd
said,
found it with only one person. So we see that
Michael,
these oaths were disagreeing with one another.
Michael, you just said that this is the part of the Quran, right? So somebody authenticated it. All those, Umar and Abu Bakr and Usman, when they were in the process of compilation, obviously they asked all the memorizers. They didn't ask just one or two people. They asked, a unanimous decision would have been made by the Huffaz at that time, the oral tradition, using the oral tradition. You are just saying that this is mentioned in the Quran till now. So how are
No,
you
but
saying?
my point about it being mentioned in the Quran is this. We see that Zayd is going to collect from people. Just let me finish this, please. Zayd is going to collect from people, however many people there may be. This he finds with only one person. It's actually entirely reasonable to believe that other verses were completely forgotten and lost to time, meaning we don't have them today. And Aisha herself even testifies to this. Aisha herself, it's in Abu. I can read the quote for you. Well, we got 4 minutes left, but I should have enough time to read the quote. This is from Kitab Fara'il al-Quran by Abu Ubaid. I'm just going to quote it. He's quoting Aisha. Aisha said, Surat Al-Azab, which is Surah 33, used to be recited in the time of the Prophet with 200 verses. But when Uthman wrote out the codices, he was unable to procure more of it than there is in it today, which is 73 verses today. So here's Aisha saying that at the time of Muhammad, there was 200 verses.
This is a different topic. This is a different topic. This is a different topic, right? Yeah.
Let me finish, please. So here's Aisha saying that in Muhammad's time, there was 200 verses that he's revealed, these 200 verses. But nowadays, there's only 73. So this is actually attesting that the Quran is not perfectly preserved, because in this one chapter alone, which is already a completely separate chapter from what was
no.
let me finish, please.
Yeah.
A separate chapter from what was talked about in Sahih Muslim 2286, which was another lost chapter. There's already like 200 minus 73, 127 lost verses.
No.
That's a lot from Kitab Fara'il al-Quran, quoting Aisha, which is a significant loss of verses when you think about it.
Number of verses may have evolved with time. Number of verses, right? This is a different. This is a different
number of verses may have what?
Yeah, number of verses may have evolved with time, right? But this doesn't mean that.
Speaking about evolve, we're speaking about loss.
No, it's not lost. I mean,
73 is less than 200.
Number of verses, after in the compilation, they may have changed, right? But the Quran, the content was the same.
No, she's saying that it was recited with 200 verses, but when Uthman wrote out the codices, he was unable, and I'm quoting, he was unable to procure more of it than there is in it today. So Aisha's saying that when Uthman procured this, he wasn't able to get the 200 verses that originally was there. He was only able to get 73. This is Aisha.
By the way, pull out this hadith as well. We need to check it first, right?
So this is from Kitab Fara'il al-Quran by Abu Ubaid. So it's a history book.
No.
So are you just going to so are you just going to reject any reference you don't like?
No,
because let's say, for example, you get from Ibn Ishaq, who was Muhammad's earliest
you have to authenticate it. You have to authenticate it first, right? But first show me the reference, show me the book. You don't know the
Abu Ubaid. Let me finish this. Abu Ubaid, the author, Kitab Fara'il al-Quran. Kitab Fara'il al-Quran. All right.
This is not among the 6 authentic books, right? This is not among the 6 authentic books, like you just mentioned, Sahih Bukhari.
So yes, I've already spoken about hadith. And
let's discuss this next time. You can share me the reference, because we have to check it first.
It's a relevant topic, because it has to do with the preservation of the Quran, and we're seeing
but it's not a
Muslim historical
its
book,
authenticity.
No
firstly, its authenticity is right now. I haven't established it. You mentioned Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. These are authentic references, but this reference, I have heard it for the first time. So you should give me, some breathing space on this, right?
Okay.
So share me the reference.
Fine. You can do the research on the reference if you mind.
Yeah.
You can do the research. I'll repeat it for you so you can. Abu Ubaid, Kitab Fara'il al-Quran. All right. Okay. So we quote Aisha, but there's another passage where Aisha speaks about another verse that was lost. So we have less than 1 minute. I'll tell you what.
We'll join again
cut it now, and then I'll quote that when we do. So I'll re-click the link, and then on our next 40 minutes, then I can quote that hadith, because we only have less than 1 minute. So let me stop sharing,
Okay.
and you can stop recording.
Join
I
again,
guess,
yeah. And I'll end the meeting. Okay, for some reason I think the second part didn't record, so I mean I'll briefly mention what went through the second part. So basically, Michael continued with, you know, emphasis upon, you know, abrogation, concept of abrogation, some ahadith referencing towards, you know, missing verses. So this is the main crux of the argument, or main points by him. Whereas I, you know, I made arguments on abrogation, right? Because some verses became abrogated later on in wisdom. So, but the major point I highlighted in the second part was that, you know, that even in the written preservation, in terms of written preservation of the Quran, you know, in the first century record that we have, and I showed, you know, a document enlisted all the, you know, parchments in the first century. When we collect all the parchments, 97% of the present Quran, 96 to 97% of the present Quran, current Quran that we have, is preserved in written records. 97% in the first century and 100% in the second century. And compare that to the Bible is on not even 5% in the first 2 centuries. Nothing. We have nothing. Almost close to nothing, not even 5%. So that's the comparison. So that was the main point that I highlighted in the second part, and I think we'll probably have more discussions on this. And with that, Assalamu alaikum.